Is your name Hannibal Lecter? Do you recall the events that led to your family's murder? The little boy Hannibal died out in that snow. What he is now, there's no word for it.
I found them. The men who killed my family.
He was killed in the woods where your family died.
His face had been eaten.
It's Lecter. He's tracking them down one by one.
Hannibal Lecter is this iconic character that is the most famous antagonist in the world.
Is your name Hannibal Lecter?
Yes.
Do you have any guilty knowledge of the death of Paul Mormon?
Guilty knowledge?
Limit your responses to yes or no.
No.
He is the best of Freddy and Jason and Jack the Ripper and all kinds of other fictional and based on real life creations that we've been seeing in horror movies and in horror literature for more than a century.
He reacts to nothing. That's monstrous.
Thomas Harris's Hannibal Lecter is one of the great pulp characterizations, I think, probably of the latter half of the 20th century. For fans, Hannibal Rising's secret weapon was Thomas Harris. He didn't just write the book, he wrote the movie, and that was hugely important.
And Thomas kind of lives with these characters. It's not vicariously either, he lives with them.
Tom Harris was a crime reporter for AP during the 60s in New York, and each of these deaths is based to some degree or other on a crime scene that he attended. This is the first screenplay that Thomas Harris has written, and Thomas really is the father of Hannibal Lecter. To have him at the end of the phone, at the end of a computer so he could answer emails, it was almost like having Hannibal Lecter on the end of the phone, to be honest.
It's a great role, Hannibal Lecter. Especially going through the same path as Anthony Hopkins, coming after him is not something really easy.
It took us a while to persuade Gaspar to do it, I have to say. I think that he was concerned. I mean, it's a big thing to take on your shoulders, you know. There's a lot of people who are going to be looking at him and trying to measure him up against, certainly up against Anthony Hopkins.
I thought about this, and I watched the Hannibal Lecter's movies, especially Silence of the Lambs, and I watched it. And the idea was to pick a few details from his character and then mix it to my own recipe. Now tell me, Inspector, you lost family in the war.
Yes.
Did you catch who did it?
No.
Then we are both suspects.
The tank scene was one of my favourites. We had a gigantic tank which we had to construct for real in the studio. Stephen suffered a lot during the making of that because he's claustrophobic. You know, the guy was out of his depth in the water with his hands tied together as the water levels rose for repeated takes. His performance, which I find fantastic in that scene, a lot of it's because he was scared to death, literally scared to death. So not that much acting was required. We've got samurai sword fights. We've got kendo. We've got plane crashes. We've got war sequences. It really is like being a kid in a candy shop. You know, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. You know, we spent a lot of time looking through old photos and stuff, trying to find what did tanks really look like on the Russian front. Found this great photo of, you know, tank with a bicycle tied to the back of it, because, you know, if you pull up in a tank, you don't want to take the bike off and cycle into the local village or whatever. You don't want to drive the tank through the village. Little things like that, you know. Maybe people don't notice them when they're watching the film, but I think they help bring a sense of reality to it. And it's very exciting, the creation of the world's most famous psychopath.
He is the Hannibal that everybody wants to see.
He's incredibly violent, incredibly vicious, with no mercy whatsoever.
I came to collect a head.